Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I don't know the order of episodes, but I'm just going to jump in. Today, we're talking about shadow work. I got obsessed with shadow work and Carl Jung not too long ago. So I'm really excited about this topic. For today, we're going to jump into what is shadow work? What is it rooted in? And then we're going to jump into how to do shadow work across different areas. Like I'm going to talk a little bit about attachment stuff, possibly some ADHD I was thinking about. But to start us off, I thought about anytime I try to explain shadow work to someone, I start off by talking about imagine you were a kid that was walking around your kitchen and you saw that there was a hot burner on the stove. And you go by it and for whatever reason, you think it's like 5 black donuts. I don't know. And you reach your hand out and you touch it. And then you experience the excruciating pain of the heat that goes into your body. Shadow work is sort of like coming to realize that burner was hot and it was bad. And later on in life, as an adolescent, you go on and get invited to a bonfire, for example. And then once you get to this bonfire, all your friends are there and everybody's inviting you. And there's this pretty girl named Hannah that you wanted to speak to, but you turned down all the invites because you said, fire is bad. I'm not going to the bonfire. The cognitive distortion in that story is that you associated all heat with bad, when in reality, it was bad that you touched the burner on the stove. But now that you've associated heat, fire with your shadow side, now you assume that the warmth of a blanket is bad. So now you sleep in the cold and it hurts your body. So a lot of people that's trying to work through shadow work and integration, the real work is to identify, well, what parts of yourself do you see as the most dark or bad? And then coming to realize that there is light that casts that shadow in the first place. And that by embracing the shadow, you also can embrace the good stuff. You can dodge the fire, but you can still go to the bonfire, if that makes sense.
Is the shadow, is the emotion of the shadow simply shame, or is it more complicated than that?
Wow.
Sorry.
No, good question. I think it's a huge part of it's shame. Honestly, I think some of it's simply also just dysregulation. Like I think some of it's I experienced that this was bad as a kid whenever I was vulnerable. And I was honest with my parents. Something happened to me that really, really dysregulated me. So now I know vulnerability is bad, and now it's locked in the same box as pain. And so I think it's closely, I would say it's mostly shame, because that is what kind of happens when it comes to the surface. But I would also say it can also be pain. This assumption that if I jump through this door, or if I walk off this cliff, that's going to be the death of me, even though it might not be.
It's interesting, too, because you're talking about something that people are unaware of. So it's like the idea that you can do this on your own without having a third party kind of identifying interesting patterns of behavior. It's like, oh, you never walk over there and you never do this. And have you ever noticed that? It's hard when you're in a first person point of view to notice you're not doing something. You know what I mean? Like the experience of me not going to the movies is just me not going to the movies. There's no like, hey, you're not going to the movies today. It's just I'm at a grocery store. And to know you're not doing something, to become aware of that is actually harder, I think, than people realize.
Yeah, like it's like to become aware of your shadow, and then also the element of like, well, what do people think of me? Because the only way to really work towards healing when you have shadow work is the only way to heal is to struggle in the presence of other people. The only way to heal is to become the worst version of yourself while you're with other people in a safe place. Because if you're only with people and you're performing at your best, that's what Carl Jung calls the persona. And that's the part of you that says, oh, yeah, I won this interaction. But if you can have positive experiences of allowing the parts of yourself that you hate the most to exist with other people, then you get to experience the satisfaction that comes from that. And the realization that, wow, my perceived worst version of myself was actually one of the elements that made this interaction work successfully in a way I didn't realize possible before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like for avoidantly attached people, it's, oh, wow, being a burden actually made it so that people wanted to lift me up in relationships. And that's actually a good thing. And that's what I've been missing my whole life. I've been dodging that, you know?
Mm-hmm. And so I keep like trying to oversimplify it, but I feel like shadow work in a lot of ways, it 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 triggers something that I'm having a hard time verbalizing this. So okay, so it's not just shame. It's just more of just like this perception of unpleasantness if I walk in this direction. So I don't walk in this direction. But there is a social element to it. Seems like shadow work wouldn't be necessary if other people didn't exist. Like if we lived on a planet of one person, there would be no need for shadow work because there would be no fear of rejection socially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm still not sure because I think about like the main elements of shadow being with other people. But then sometimes I think, well, if I was on the planet alone and I had this assumption that I effectively get food to my camp by working harder and getting things and not really abiding by my limitations because that led to my pleasure instinct, then I miss out on the benefits. Like shadow work could look like, well, maybe I need to call it quits and just accept some days and just go to sleep and rest. Like with ADHD, I think a hard part of acceptance is like knowing your limits, right? Like maybe I just know my limits and try to embrace the fact that I can't take care of myself. But then I'm also still open to the idea that, well, maybe that's a slightly different take on, but that's just in the weeds of things. But I think about that too. It definitely strikes me more so though on the relational side.
What you want to hear something funny? So I was listening to Carl Jung. I was listening to him talk like yesterday on YouTube to try and prep for this, and I was like, I know that accent. It sounds similar to me, and I was like, I recognize it so well. He's got kind of like an Arnold Schwarzenegger twang. If you really listen to it, there's like an Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No way.
So I'm like, this guy, Carl Jung must be from Austria because that's the only explanation. You know, he's from Switzerland.
No way.
So he's from Switzerland, and but now I couldn't let this go, so I had to keep reading about this. So he is from Switzerland, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's from Austria, but Carl Jung's from a part of Switzerland that's right on the like coast. Like right on the edge, and it's very close to Austria. So I think linguistically, he probably grew up around a lot of like Arnold Schwarzenegger type bodybuilders.
It's so random. I never thought about that.
That's what I do with my spare time. I'm like, if I'll hear I once heard a laugh. I was watching stand-up comedy, and I heard a laugh in like one of the specials, and I was like, I know that laugh. Was Jim Brewer at this special for his friend's show? I was like, I know it.
And then you have to figure it out. You do
and
the research.
I usually get it right.
So that
there's like a red yarn on my wall, like connecting. Like
that's the same research you did for this. You're like, Arnold Schwarzenegger sounds like.
Oh
Carl
no, I know
Jung.
nothing about Carl Jung, but I do know that he's from a town near Austria.
Well, that's one of the things that I wasn't sure about his location. I don't pay attention, but I do know a good bit. I got obsessed with him for a while. Another cool little theoretical thing for people to think about is if you look up the psychological structure of like the way that Carl Jung would depict the psyche. Here's what you can really think about. There's the self, right? Picture a circle, just the self. That's who we are. Both the parts of ourselves that we're aware of and that we're not. Then there's the persona, the part of ourselves that we hope to portray to the world. This can be made up of things that are actually true about us or things that we want to be true. I want people to see me as charismatic. I'm like, okay, let me dish that out to my persona. Oh, I feel like I failed. I feel bad today. You know, that's also the part of ourselves that doesn't like dig in our nose in public. You know, it's like we don't want people to see like these awful whatever. But then underneath that is the shadow side. And that's the side of the things that we know to be true about ourselves or perceive to be true about ourselves, and the things that we want to keep in there. And so usually the work of shadow work, the work of all this is twofold. One is, are there false assumptions that I have about my persona, the parts of myself that I project out to the world that might actually not be so effective? And are there parts of myself in the shadow that I keep contained that might actually be effective to have more so on the outside? And when my shadow side accidentally leaks into my persona, how do I deal with that dysregulation? And I think that's where the dealing with shame comes in, where you gain power and mastery over it, not by running away from it, but by realizing you don't have to run away nor towards that. It actually feels just like somebody talking about the weather.